All right, good morning, everyone. How are y'all doing this morning? Good. All right. Thank you for being with us this morning. I will call our May 2023 Staff Senate meeting to order and begin with calling the roll. Senator Basham. Present. Regent Brinkley is not with us yet. I am here. Senator Kanzler. Senator Cato is not going to be with us this week. Neither is Senator Crow. Senator Daniels here. Senator Gilbert. Present. Senator Hopwood. Yes, sir. Senator Inglis.
Present.
Senator Johnson is not going to be with us. Senator Jones.
Here.
Senator Moran.
Here.
Senator Pritchard.
Here.
Senator Purdy. Senator Robertson. Senator Salmon.
Present.
Senator Thomas. Senator Vanderpool.
Present.
Senator Vincent.
Present.
And Senator Waller.
Present.
Next, we will move on to the approval of our agenda for this meeting. I'd like to accept that by unanimous consent, unless there's any objections. Hearing none, we will consider the agenda approved. Next, we'll approve the prior monthly meeting minutes. Likewise, I'd like to approve those by unanimous consent unless there are any objections. Hearing none, we'll consider those accepted. And then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the presentation of the Christopher Ware Staff Star Awards.
Good morning. As always, it's a pleasure to present these awards, and we have three wonderful staff members this morning. We're going to first start off with Katie Weary. Katie is the coordinator for direct lending and student financial assistance, and this is what her nominator said. If you look up the definition of unsung hero, you will find Katie Weary's picture next to it. Katie is responsible for processing every federal student loan for every single student at WKU. You can imagine this is an incredibly tedious, repetitious, and stressful task. But after spending 5 minutes with Katie, you wouldn't think that about her role at all. Despite her consistently long list of tasks, she always stops to help anyone that walks in the door. When I started in student financial assistance, I felt incredibly uneasy about jumping into a new role, especially one in the financial aid office, which hasn't always had the best reputation. Let's be honest, people either love or hate the financial aid office. Katie took the time to make me feel welcome, either wanted, and teaches me new things literally every day. Katie's smile and attitude are infectious and can help anyone go from having a bad day to a better one. I want to nominate Katie so she can be recognized for her constant day in and day out work that literally keeps the wheels at WKU turning. Thousands of students wouldn't be here if it weren't for the diligent dedication to the student financial assistance team at WKU. Then I'd also like to invite Christy up here. Christy Hughes is the Assistant Director of Financial Aid, and she's going to speak on Katie's behalf.
Hi guys, I do with Katie here, just want to say that unsung hero is definitely a good term for her. I've had the pleasure of working with Katie for over 14 years now, almost 15 years. And the last 2 of that has been spent as her supervisor. So with oversight of that loan area, she single-handedly pulls in every loan, sends every loan to the Department of Ed for thousands of students here at WKU. She handles more than $65 million in federal loan money. She reconciles it almost every week, if not every month, keeps it to the penny. She makes my job easy with oversight of that area because she is so fantastic. So I don't even know how to say rock star is not even a unsung hero, rock star, anything that you want to call Katie. And she does it all just quietly, just does her job. She even just mentioned a minute ago, she doesn't like the spotlight, so this is really uncomfortable for her. She said, that's why I stick with the processing area, because I'm just processing and doing my job. So she, although she doesn't like the spotlight, she is more than deserving of the spotlight right now. So Katie, we couldn't do what we do without you, and I'm thankful to be have you. You're welcome. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Our next Christopher Ware Staff Star Award goes to Angie Link. Angie is the Senior Accounts Payable Associate in Pro Card Services. This is from her nominator. Angie is an outstanding employee that contributes her time and efforts in the accounts payable department to making sure everyone's needs are taken care of. She is always available, handles your questions or concerns with the utmost respect, and makes sure you have what you need in regards to billing and group travel. Angie is super friendly and makes your visit an enjoyable one. She always has a smile on her face, even though she lost her home in the tornadoes last December. I recommend Angie to be recognized for her outstanding contributions. In addition, this is from her supervisor. Angie joined Accounts Payable almost a year ago and has finished the first in the annual cycle of her new position. During that time, I have found that Angie is always ready to learn new tasks while maintaining a positive attitude. Angie is a great addition to Accounts Payable team and the whole WKU campus community. I'm excited to know that Angie Link is receiving the Christopher Ware Staff Star Award. I also want to share that I've known Angie for many years. I had the pleasure of working with her in the Bursar's office when she started her career at WKU a few years ago, not many years ago, right, Angie? She then moved on to the ISEC office where she spent many years making a positive impact on students' life. When I Googled Angie's name at WKU to get her title, one of the things that first popped up was a quote from a student that says, "The Intercultural Student Engagement Center has also tremendously impacted Mr. Thomas, specifically Miss Angie Link, who is his WKU mom. She has always greeted me with a smile when I entered the office. She is very motivated and encouraging with her words of wisdom. This is a true definition of a staff star, one that goes above and beyond to serve our students at WKU. And as her nominator mentioned, her and her husband were both in her house when the tornado hit in December. And luckily, she's a survivor and they survived, and it made her a stronger person, but she still came to work and did her duties at WKU. So on behalf of Staff Senate, Angie, we'd like to thank you for all you do at WKU and congratulations.
We squeeze in.
Okay. They look pretty, right? Okay, our final Christopher Ware Staff Star Award goes to Stephanie Cowan. She's got her little squad here. This is actually from Stephanie's nominator. She was nominated by one of the faculty members, which is totally awesome because a lot of times we have staff members and we very rarely have a faculty member. So it's nice to see a faculty member recognize the hard work of a staff. I am nominating Stephanie Cowan as a staff star because of the many years she has worked behind the scenes to help me provide an excellent online experience for my students. Over the past 5 years, she has always responded quickly with patience to a multitude of questions for me. I'm especially grateful for her expertise at the beginning of each semester when time is of the essence and I need to help my course in perfect order before school starts. Stephanie has helped me with administrative tasks, brainstormed with me about the best ways to present content, and given me great ideas for streamlining information to make it easier for students to process. I forgot to tell you what you do. She is an instructional support specialist in CITL. So when you talk about online students for all these online courses, she's one of the amazing people that help those online courses look great. I've actually also had the pleasure of working with Stephanie. I just work with great people. For many years, she started in the on-demand office, and she's always willing to help, always goes above and beyond when something needs to be done. I'm very thankful for everything that she does for our students and WKU and our area, our online courses. She's a valuable asset to the team, and I'm thankful to also call her my friend. I'm also speaking on her behalf is the Assistant Provost Marco. He has a few words to say about Stephanie.
So first of all, Stephanie loves the spotlight. Thrilled to have this much attention.
So sweet.
And the rest of the CITL gang would be here if, but we had to keep the office open. But that's how much we love and care for Stephanie. I think there's three things that really describe Stephanie. One is superhuman. The other one is inquisitive, and the final one is dedicated. The superhuman, during the COVID crisis, when faculty were asked to transition all of their courses online within 10 days. And working with faculty, you know, it can be challenging. And Stephanie was on the front lines. And I do not exaggerate when I say that this could not have happened without Stephanie. So the fact that faculty survived is in large part.
That's true.
Inquisitive, every now and then we get together because we're nerds and talk about teaching and learning. And Stephanie's always talking about the readings and always the one to broach difficult questions and controversial questions. And she brings a lot of light and spark to our conversations. And then finally, dedicated. She doesn't help us set boundaries because our office inbox is always at 0. Mine still has 4,000 emails in it. Because even when she's going through her personal trials and tribulations, right? Like with all of us, we have health issues, our family has health issues. Life happens, but Stephanie always responds to faculty, responds to us because she has that sense of responsibility. And she sets the bar high for all of us in terms of what we do for each other and for our faculty. So for that, Stephanie, and all that you do behind the stages when nobody can see, thank you. Once you guys go.
You will embarrass us all the way. Yeah. As if you were hard.
Individual person.
Everybody. Okay, sorry.
Here. And then it will be a CITL.
Okay, Mike, a little bit down. Sorry. Good.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you again for those who nominated our Staff Star winners this week. And please continue when you see that link post in our announcements for Staff Senate meetings. Please continue to nominate and recognize your colleagues, your fellow staff members for that award and recognize their hard work if you know of someone that would be so deserving. Next on our agenda is our guest speaker. It is Bruce Wiseman, our Director of Internal Audit. So Bruce, thank you for being with us today, and I will turn it over to you.
Thanks for having me today. In just a second, we'll get this set up. There we go. There we go. Okay. Thank you all for having me. I'm Bruce Wiseman, the Director of Internal Audit, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about who we are in internal audit and what we do. Sometimes this can get pretty exciting, so please, keep your enthusiasm at a respectable level. But this should be very informal. Please jump in, ask questions. I'm a simple, easygoing guy, so please reach out anytime if you've got a question. So first, who are we? We're me right now. So, you're looking at the entire team. We're in the process of hiring a senior auditor. We're doing some interviews. Once we hire them, hopefully here in the next week or so, we'll almost be at full capacity. We're looking for a student intern after that. So if you are a student intern, you want to be a student intern, please let me know. We're looking for good people. Send them our way. A little bit about myself. I've been at Western Kentucky since January of this year. It's been a great 4 months. I've been in higher ed internal audit for the last 13 years. So excited to learn new things and how things work at Western Kentucky. Prior to that, I was in public accounting, and that's a lot less exciting than working on the college campus. Also, if you want to get any certifications, I highly recommend the Certified Internal Auditor, because when you can say Bruce Wiseman, CIA, that's pretty cool. CPA, not so much. They kind of run the other way, but CIA, that one's pretty cool. One of the questions I get frequently is who's your boss? Who do you report to, right? So we're on the org chart. We're right up here with the president and the board of regents. We report directly to the board, and that is to give us independence and objectivity when we're doing our work. It's kind of hard to audit the president if you're reporting to him. So this is the way internal audit should be structured. It's a best practice. And we have a dotted line of the president. That way he can approve expense reports, PTO, that sort of thing. But my boss is the Finance and Budget Committee of the Board of Regents. So what is internal audit? What do we do, right? Let's talk about that. The mission of internal audit, wherever you are, and this is according to the Institute of Internal Auditors, is to enhance and protect value at your organization. And you do that through risk-based and objective assurance and advice. So what exactly does that mean, right? Enhance value. Make things better than where they were when you started. That's our goal. That's what we want to do. The risk-based part is you focus on the big things, significant things, big risks, big opportunities. Kind of let the little things off to themselves. But you want to hone in on the big things because that's where the biggest value can come from. And you do that by doing assurance and advice. We'll talk about that here on the next slide. When you think of audit, you mostly think about the assurance services. These are your audits: financial, operational, IT, compliance, governance. You can come up with a whole bunch of other ones, but these are the big ones. And when you think about it, a lot of people think about what happens every summer with our external auditors. They come in, they look at our financial statements, they say, are the revenues right? Are the expenses right? And the idea is that financial statement look correct? Does it reflect our activity? Since someone else is doing that audit, we in internal audit, we don't do a lot of that. We kind of let that go. We want to focus more on the operational part. What's the process for putting together that financial report? What systems did you get the information from? Did you get it all? Did you miss any? Did you count anything twice? That sort of thing. We're about processes, and we'll provide assurance that your processes are working right. One of the award winners, they like to process the financial aid, right? There's a bunch of processes there. That's something we could audit. Is it working the way we want it to work? A big part of internal audit that a lot of people don't know about is the other side, the advisory services side. And that, you can just think of us as consultants. We're built-in consultants. We work for the university. You want some advice, you want some ideas, you want to know how to do something better, enhance the process, whatever it might be, you can give us a call. And guess what? We're not going to charge you anything. You call Huron, they're going to send you a bill. Our hourly rate is X. You call me, we'll say, hey, we can work that in. We'll work with you, and it doesn't cost you anything. Hopefully, we can add value that way. This is one of my favorite slides, and I wanted to make sure I squeezed it in there because I'm getting a smile in the back room, so she might already know the answer. But when you're studying audit, whether that be in school or you're studying it for a CPA test or a CIA test, they always say, well, how can you remember what audit is supposed to be? What's their objectives? What are they looking at? And they say, just remember SCARE, that acronym. Auditors are scary people. You'll remember what to do. And I don't think I'm a scary guy. I don't want to be a scary guy. So I say, internal audit, care. We remember that we care about what we're doing. We care about our organization. So what are we doing? We're looking to make sure we're complying with laws and regulations. We're going to make sure that you, management out there, can accomplish your objectives. We want to make sure we have reliable information on our financial reports. Are we using our resources efficiently and effectively? And then finally, are we safeguarding our assets? If you go look at our audits, almost every audit process or every audit test that we do, it's probably going to accomplish one of these 5 things, some form or fashion. So just remember, audit cares. We're not scary people. In addition to doing our audits and our projects that we do an annual risk assessment. We partner with the president's cabinet to interview leaders across campus and say, hey, what are the biggest risks around campus? What is going to prevent us from achieving our objectives? And we figure out what the biggest risks are. And after that, we develop an audit plan to go do our audits next year. I'll talk a little bit more about that down the road. In addition to audits and a risk assessment, we run the university's hotline. So if you've seen the ethics and compliance hotline on our website or on another Western Kentucky website, those reports come to me. So we run that, we get the report, and if we need to, we'll do the investigation. See what those allegations correct or not. That's me, we do that. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So what do you do if you suspect fraud or misconduct? I've got some guidelines up here, they're guidelines. So this is the way it could go, but do it through what's most comfortable to you all. Start with your supervisor. If you can tell them, hey, I think something's going on, start there. If they're the ones doing it, I would not talk to them about it. Let's go to step 2. You can talk to the area that it relates to. Say it's an HR matter. Go talk to HR. See if they can help you out. Maybe they've been down that path before. They probably have. If you don't feel comfortable with either of those options, give me a call, shoot me an email. And if you really want to be anonymous, send it to the hotline. It's completely anonymous and it's always there. It's always available, whatever it may be. So again, these are guidelines. I'd love you to follow them, but I always tell people, don't overthink it. If you need to send it to the hotline, please do so. It'll come to me. I'll get it to where it needs to belong. Needs to go. If you're looking for that information, there's another slide here in a minute that it's going to pop up on. Guidelines for hotline reports. What to report, what not to report, right? So fiscal misconduct, conflicts of interest, compliance violations, bigger, heavier type things. Put them through the hotline. Let us know. The hotline is not there for, my favorite one is the second one, heavy disagreements with colleagues. If something's going on at the water cooler, probably doesn't rise to the level of a hotline. Talk with your supervisor, talk with HR, those kinds of things. At the bottom, you'll notice there's a link, wku.edu/report. That's a landing page for reporting all kinds of things at the university. If you've got a Title IX or bias, discrimination complaint, student misconduct, there are some different links there to pick and choose where to report it to. So those go to other offices. Again, if you happen to report that to the hotline, I'm gonna get it to where it needs to go. So just know the hotline there is, it's a good safety net. I'm gonna reiterate it one more time. It's a completely anonymous hotline. It's from a third party. They take the phone calls. I don't have access to caller ID. I don't have access to IP numbers. I have no idea who's reporting this stuff. This is good because most fraud is discovered through anonymous tips. It's also hard because when you look at hotline statistics, only 42% of hotline calls that come in are substantiated. The other 60%, someone doesn't know the full story. They're just trying to make life difficult for somebody else. So it's a double-edged sword. So it's there, it's anonymous. Please use it if you need it. And the last line there just kind of sums it up. If you see something, say something, please. All right, before we get into some more technical audit things, pause for any questions in the room. Okay, we're doing okay so far. So what are controls? So internal control is a process affected by a board of directors, management, or other personnel designed to provide reasonable assurance, that's a key one, regarding the achievement of objectives. That's a whole lot of words, right? Let's break it down. It's a process put in place by people, all kinds of different people, for reasonable assurance to achieve your objectives. So what are your objectives? You know, Western Kentucky, we've got a mission statement. We're going to educate people. We're going to do research. We're going to be a supportive member of the community. What are your department's missions? What are you trying to achieve? Controls are just processes to help make sure you achieve those goals. Now the part about the reasonable assurance. I'm going to talk about that and talk about the opposite of that, absolute assurance. Absolute assurance is it's going to happen. It's never going to break down. It's always going to work right. Nothing is ever going to go wrong with that process. Good luck with making that one happen, right? You got to be a machine to even have a chance. Even then, you got to tell the machine exactly what to do and do it right. So reasonable assurance is we've got a process in place and it works most of the time. Those are controls. They're processes. You hear controls, think of process. Internal controls are organized in a framework. This is the COSO cube. There's not going to be a test. You don't have to remember all this. There's a website if you want to learn more about it. If you're really interested, we can do a second session on internal controls, advanced topics, and we'll get into the details, right? I haven't designed that class yet because I haven't found a lot of interest, but if it's there, let me know. This is a way that any organization can say, we have effective controls. Doesn't matter if you're a lemonade stand down the street, government, Google, Amazon, Western Kentucky, doesn't matter. If you have these things, you've got effective controls. Now, real quick, the top of the cube, it says operations, reporting, and compliance. That's what you're trying to achieve. Those are your objectives. You want to have good, efficient operations, effective reporting, and you don't want to be breaking any laws. Along the side of the cube, you've got the different levels of the organization. Entity-wide, that comes down, thinking of Western Kentucky, different schools, different departments, so on and so forth. You've got controls at different levels, all right? And then the bread and butter of the framework is the face of the cube, these 5 things: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information communication, and monitoring activities. Those 5 components have 17 principles. We're not going to get into those details today, but those are the internal controls. Those are the things that make an organization run the way you want it to run. So for example, control environment. Those are your policies, your procedures, your job descriptions. It's the board of regents saying, we're going to run an ethical organization with integrity. They're setting the tone at the top. Is there standards of conduct? What's allowable, what's tolerable, what's not? That's control environment, just as an example. Most people, when you hear controls, you're thinking of control activities. You've got approvals of expense reports, right? You've got kids graduating tomorrow and Friday. When they got here, we said, if you complete these certain requirements in the catalog, we'll give you a degree. We have a control in place to make sure they met all those requirements before they get the degree. So it's just not financial things, it's academic things as well. There's the internal control framework. So now what's your role? Where do you fit in here? Look, I'm losing some people. We're getting into the technical. I promise, we're getting into the fun part here. Anyway. The Institute of Internal Audits have also put internal controls into a 3 lines of defense model. Anybody here like football? There's a couple. Very good. 3 lines of defense, right? You got the defensive line, you got the linebackers, and you got the safeties. Same concept. First line of defense, those are your people on the ground. Those are your people, your budget managers, your department chairs, your deans. They're saying these are appropriate transactions, to use an example. They're the ones that are signing off on your expense reports. They're authorizing those things. They know that that relates to a component of the business and should happen. All right, then you've got the second line of defense, your linebackers. In Western Kentucky, you can think of your travel coordinator, the pro card administrator. Pro card administrator doesn't approve your pro card expenses, but they do some monitoring. They double check. It's a hotel expense for $1,800. That's awfully high. Let me take a look at that. If they see any questions, they may call the budget manager, your department chair, and say, hey, what's going on? Does this look right to you? Ask some questions. They'll feel good about it. They're providing some oversight of the first line. And then finally, we've got the third line of defense, the safeties. You got me, internal audit, the biggest safety you're ever going to see, right? Probably the slowest one too. But one of my jobs in this 3 lines of defense model is to look at the first 2 lines and see, are they working properly? That's the idea. Now, a couple other observations. You'll see the first line and the second line, they're called management. And then you've got internal audit as separate than that. There's a line going back and forth. We're going to talk to each other. We're going to communicate. We're going to make sure we're in alignment. But there's a separation between audit and management. Management is responsible for doing the operations. They make the decisions. I can only make recommendations and write reports. That's what I get to do. That's my role. You'll see both management and internal audit. You'll see the lines going up in the governing body. We both talk to the Board of Regents. We got a board meeting tomorrow. I'm not presenting tomorrow, I presented last time. But I let them know what I'm doing. They keep tabs on my operations. They give me feedback. Management will do the same thing. Every board meeting's got a report from Provost Fisher, from Susan Howard, and from Ethan Logan, where they'll say, hey, I got no report. So that's kind of how it's some structure with governance and thinking about the 3 lines of defense. Think about where you are in that model and where you interact the most with controls. So what is risk? Let's keep it easy. I love this definition. Risk is any issue or event which may adversely impact your achievement of your objectives. Anything that just stops you from doing what you're trying to achieve. An event could be a tornado, right? We can no longer educate if we've got a tornado. It could be a pandemic. We can't get to class anymore. That is a risk to achieving our objective as a university. Luckily, we've got great people putting controls in place or mitigating these risks, finding ways around them so we can still achieve our mission, right? So that's risk. We talk a lot about risk with internal audit, right? I talk about risk assessment, what's the biggest risk to the university, those kinds of things. So let's talk through an example. Hopefully this is the funnest thing of the whole presentation. So we've got a risk, inappropriate use of a pro card. Imagine there's no processes. Imagine there's no controls. You just got hired, it's your first day. Welcome to Western Kentucky. Here's a pro card. Go buy whatever you want. You want to go buy some cruise tickets? You want to buy an airline ticket? Go to a concert? I heard there's an Ed Sheeran concert coming up. Need some Taylor Swift tickets? Here we go. So, well, a lot of risk if we don't have any controls. You can see this is a big red box, right? A lot of things could go wrong in that scenario. So one control we got is we've got merchant category codes. The Pro Card office says, we'll give you the P card, the Pro Card, but you can't spend any money at the liquor stores. You can't spend any money at a casino. They can turn certain things off. So that helps bring down our risk level. They've got transaction limits and spending limits. You can spend $2,000 at a time, $5,000 for the month. I don't know if you can buy those Taylor Swift tickets anymore, $2,000 on one shot. I'm getting a head shake now, probably not. Then you've got your budget managers, your index managers. They're going to approve every transaction that you do. So you might be able to spend the money on those Ed Sheeran tickets. But then someone's going to come back and look behind and say, whoa, 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 what are you doing? What's the business purpose? How is that helping us achieve our mission? The answer is no, you're probably going to have to reimburse those. But they're keeping an eye on the appropriateness of those transactions.
It boosts morale.
If you can make the case, there you go. And then you've got another control, again, the Pro Card office. They're doing some monitoring. Remember the monitoring part, the second line of defense? They're not going to look at every transaction, but if they see those concert tickets, they might go, oh, whoa, hey, and go talk to somebody. Hey, we're having a team event. We're going to the concert. And if it makes sense, it makes sense. At the end, we're left with what we call residual risk. And the idea is we start with a big risk. We put in a bunch of controls to limit their impact so we can still achieve our objectives, and we get it to a risk that we can live. That's how risks and controls work, not work, but interact together. All right, before I ask you all for any questions, we had some good questions come in online. I'll throw them up here and answer real quick. Primary job responsibility of internal audit. We talked about that one, right? Add and enhance value to the organization. Risk-based assurance and advice. How does internal audit decide who's going to get audited? I love this question. So we do the risk assessment, right? We say, where's the biggest risk to the university? What do we need to make sure where the processes are working properly? After that, especially this year, since I'm new, I'm coming up with ideas, the processes related to those risks. And I'm going to the management saying, hey, could your area benefit from an audit? Let's make sure whatever process is there to mitigate the risk is working the way you want it to work. So that's what we do. Risk assessment, what processes relate to that, and then we go audit it. This next one, how do you look at having the best interest with not only staff, but the university as a whole? So we'll go all the way back to the very beginning. We had the org chart, right? I report directly to the board of trust. My job is not to audit staff. My job is to audit things and provide advice for Western Kentucky University. Staff, faculty, students, donations, alumni, all of that. So it's not that I'm here to have the best interest of staff in mind. I'm here to have the best interest of Western Kentucky University. These next two, I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of information. I'm not involved with the operations of the university. Those are more management things. But how does Western Kentucky determine if an office is over or understaffed? I don't know how that works, but I'll tell you, if I was doing an audit and I was in an area, I would look at the org chart and I would say, okay, how many people do we have? What are they doing? You know, if there are several processors doing the same job, are they all getting the same amount of work done? I'll look at another college or university with a similar profile and I'll say, okay, how big is their office of, pick an office, right? Financial aid, that was down here. How many people do they have? How are they structured? Do we have more? Do we have less? What's their budget dollars compared to our budget dollars? And just because you do a benchmark and you get an answer, that doesn't mean that the other organization has it right. You might be right, they might be wrong, right? But it gives you an idea. And if you can get a benchmark from multiple places, you get a feel for what the average looks like. So that's my best answer for number one there. How often are areas costs compared to revenues? Is this done for all departments? I know this is done in finance at a high level, either monthly or quarterly. I don't know how far down into the weeds they get, but I would hope that all of your areas, all departments, the budget managers are looking at these things, and make those decisions. Finally, is performance audit a subset of internal audit? I had to look up performance audit because I wanted to make sure I had the right one. But basically, it relates to government auditing and making sure that government programs are achieving their mission. I was like, hey, bingo, that's internal audit. That's what we do. So if you go back to my slide where I said financial, compliance, operational, governance, put performance audit on the list. If I was a government, if I was a city, if I was a state, performance auditing is internal. So the answer to that one, I'm gonna go with yes. Okay. Those are all the ones that came out online. Any other questions? Anybody in-house? Anything else pop up online? Anything else you want to know? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry if you already said this, but where is your office located?
So we are located in Weatherby on the ground floor. We are in the offices right outside or right next to the travel coordinator, if you know where she's at. If you're talking to her, I can see you out of my office. So come visit me anytime.
Not a question. I just want to say fantastic presentation. I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all the nods. I appreciate that through the presentation today.
So with the hotline and you, I guess because there's a chain of command, like you said, to your supervisor. Do you guys take the hotline request just as important as like if you come to you? Because there's a lot of people that, we get anonymous emails and, I think people don't know where to go. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
especially if it's in a small office,
Yes, absolutely. So I don't dismiss anything when it comes in from the hotline. I'm always a truth seeker. I'm always saying, okay, what really happened here? I'm always trying to balance, does this person know the whole story of what they're talking about? But I can usually find a way to confirm some things either by talking with folks in an apartment. I can run some reports, look at some data. I can figure things out, but we take every hotline report very seriously and bring it to a conclusion of whether something happened or not.
I think that's one thing that, with it being anonymous, sometimes people don't feel, and I think we run into that with Senate, people don't think we follow up, but we do follow up. And if there's no way to reach back out to that person and there's no way to get the outcome, sometimes they may think, oh, well, they didn't even pay attention, but you are taking care of things and you are doing and you were researching. Because like you said, it could be something that they heard, oh, just hearsay. And so
The best part about this third-party platform is I have the ability to communicate with the reporter.
oh, okay.
So I can send a comment or a question back. I'll be like, hey, you allege this. What about this part? Can you tell me more? And when you file the report, you'll get like a computer generated ID number, case number, that sort of thing, where the reporter can go in, log in and see if I've left any comments or
Oh, okay.
questions. So there is still that ability to communicate anonymously for those follow-ups. And I will tell you, we close every report in the hotline with a comment back to the reporter that says, hey, thank you for your report. We've done our work and we've closed this report. And we usually can't share any details, were things confirmed, were they not? We don't get in that level of detail, but we will let them know it was closed.
That's
Great question.
Yeah, that's good to know, because like you said, a lot of times you want to be anonymous, but you also want to follow up and it's
Exactly.
hard.
You have that opportunity.
Mhm.
Well, hey, thank you all very much. Stop by and say hello, give me a call, shoot me an email. Love to hear from you. So thank you. There you go. Yes, sir.
Next on our agenda, we have officer committee and staff regent reports. So we will go right to Regent Briggs.
Give me just a second.
It's not a busy week or anything.
No,
Or so.
I was late today simply because of the report. Just one second, you all. Actually, go to another.
We'll go ahead, we'll come back. So, next is Communications Center, Vincent.
No report.
Next is the Regent report. Regent.
I apologize, you all. Tomorrow we have our second quarterly regular meeting. As you all know, we have 4 quarterly meetings a year, 4 committee meetings a year, unless there's a special call meeting. We have, I don't want to say traditionally, but there is in the last several years been special call meetings in June to do a final budget approval. Related to that, we have each, as board members, received a briefing and a budget summary from the EVP's office that included a deck, a slide deck, and summaries, written summaries. The briefing on that for you all is we see a budget that will actually increase in size for FY24 by roughly $6.5 million from the previous fiscal year. And there is language written in for a 2% salary adjustment in the beginning of, as a function of FY24's budget. Did I say that right? January. Well, it wouldn't be adjusted to the any staff or faculty until January, but it's written in the budget for the coming year. Also, the board is anticipated to approve a 3% tuition raise. The Council on Post-Secondary Education gave us a 5% window over 2 years. And the recommendation from administration is to go 3% this year and if needed, 2% next year. There are additional action items that have been added to the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. And the addition of one of those has occupied most of my time since yesterday afternoon. And it's a memorandum of understanding between College Heights Foundation and WKU. We received those materials yesterday for the vote tomorrow. I have some questions that I'm outlining in advance for that meeting. There are 2 additional items for full board consideration that were not a part of the committee meetings as well. Those are related to athletics contracts. I have included in my notes that I've submitted for the minutes. Sorry, my words aren't there today. A presentation that Todd Stewart gave notes from that on Monday to the faculty executive committee. It was a comprehensive presentation related to the status and some questions that faculty had asked. I've included the link to that PDF in my notes. So I would highly suggest that when that gets published, that you all read that. It's an excellent summary. Todd did an outstanding presentation and really answered a lot of questions. But those are tied into the action items that will be presented with. And since we didn't have time to have a presentation from him, I went ahead and reviewed those and posted those as part of my report. From the previous committee reports, the only things that have really changed on the agenda are the athletic employment contract for head football coach. That's an addendum. The athletic employment contract for head men's basketball coach, and the approval of the MOU between College Heights Foundation and Western Kentucky University. There are some specific things that I have questions about related to that. I'm not familiar with some of the terminology like leased employees. I don't mind mentioning that out loud. That's something that's new to me. I want to dive a little bit further into that, and also the presumptive language that says the foundation can exist without the university and it is not subsidized by the university. Those are some of the questions that I have. There's probably very logical answers for them. I just have not had a chance since yesterday afternoon to pose those questions. But those are questions that I'll be putting out there. There will be a special call budget meeting in early June. The board will follow. Remember, this week's meeting, if you're used to attending those or watching those, it's tomorrow at 1:00. It is not Friday morning. It's tomorrow at 1 p.m. And then we have the ceremonies for the rest of the week. I'm happy to take any questions from anyone about anything right now, and I will answer if I can, and if I can't, I will get you all an answer. But I strongly encourage each of you, to review the revised agenda and the notes, and certainly avail yourselves of the budget summary and slide deck. If those, I don't know the extent that they're published. I know what I get, but I don't know the extent that they're published online. I'm sure they are. If they're not, they will be tomorrow. I would certainly review all of those. And you can send me a question anytime, even before or after, because remember the budget summary vote, the budget vote is not till June. So the only thing I'm focusing on for tomorrow are these contracts and really this MOU that came up yesterday.
What's the MOU?
It's a memorandum of understanding. I mean, that's I hate to say a quasi contract, but it's the closest thing you can get to a hard contract. Is that fair?
I'd say it defines the relationship between the university and the foundation and roles and responsibilities, who's going to do what, who can do what, those kinds of things. Contract's a great way to.
Yeah, we commonly use those when we say have an agreement to lease space on somebody's radio or television tower. We'll have a memorandum of understanding, and you can outline different things in those, like I would give the, for instance of it, an escalation in a rental fee over a period of years, or a definition of who owns what from the beginning. I mean, it's, as Bruce, thank you for adding that. I'm so happy he's in here because I can. Between him and my compliance finance officer being in here, I could be like, okay. But in all seriousness, it's something that has, according to the email that we got, had a year's worth of work. So I'm going to try to give it the diligence and review from my yesterday reception till tomorrow when I'm supposed to vote. Just want to stress that again.
When you mentioned you would recommend that we look at that.
I recommend you read everything.
Okay.
I do. I think if you don't read this information, especially, I would recommend that you go to the faculty executive committee meeting notes and look at their agenda notes, the finance and budget. The thing that I attached to my report is from the finance and budget report of the faculty Senate executive committee. That's sort of a buried down thing, but all these things are online and they're available. And they all contain great information, because when somebody like Bruce or Todd or Susan, the people that we're used to seeing rotate through these meetings, rotates through other meetings, they're going to give the most up-to-date information they have. And that's going to be encapsulated and presented in these other groups. And I think it's valuable, incredibly valuable information.
Is that a spot where is it public record to see what the budget would be for facilities management?
In the summary, there will be because it's in the summary. I mean, it's not. So what the summary does, I'm going to say this wrong, but I'm going to try. Budget, it's like 600 pages. It's massive. But the budget summary does its best to encapsulate areas of concentration. For instance, Potter College would be one line instead of the maybe 150 indexes that are part of Potter College. 100, sorry, yeah.
It's 100-foot view, the summary is.
Yeah, it's not a comprehensive thing. What we're approving, it's an effort to not micromanage, right? So I'm fine approving an amount for a college. I'm not fine telling the dean that amount needs to be X in chemistry, X in physics, and X in astronomy, right? That's not my job. That would be micromanaging. So what we do is we approve a budget recommendation on the amounts. And as long as those amounts seem right, like there'll probably be a question around the change in performance funding. There's a reduction in that. And I got a really good explanation as to why that happens and how students are counted and how there's a group advocating on a change for that tabulation, which made perfect sense to me. And some of those nuanced things, like if you see something and you're like, oh my gosh, that percentage is down 25%, or that percentage is up 300%. Feel free to ask me that question. And I can either, if I don't have the answer already, I can get it and we'll be happy to provide it. So if there's anything out of the ordinary that you all see, I'm happy to dive into that and get, and if you want to see a copy of the budget, I mean, it's actually published by index number. And it's an extremely boring read, and you really kind of have to know your budget index numbers and where they fall to really make sense of it. All right, thanks. An honor, you all.
Next is Senator Purdy, Treasurer.
For the May report, ENG index, the starting and ending balance is $1,462.40. For the Staff Senate Excellence Fund, the starting balance and ending balance is $1,851.62. For the book scholarship, the starting balance is $1,579.84, and the ending balance is $1,599.84, making the additions $20.
Thank you. Senator Johnson is not with us today. Vice Chair, Senator Basham.
So just two items of note. One, to Regent Brinkley's point about the inclusion of a 2% pool in the budget request. That doesn't, how that will be allocated has not been decided yet. The BEC has concluded their work. The Budget Executive Committee has concluded their work for this semester. We'll start again late summer. And the first task then will be, once that 2% hopefully is approved by the board, we'll talk about how to allocate that. Conversations inside the Senate have already started about what we might recommend as a function of our representation on that committee. So we'll continue that when the BEC starts work again. The other item, May 10th, our special staff Senate election is slated for the full day. I'll say your vote is going to count more than what you might have perceived in our last election. We have 10 candidates and 5 slots. So I will encourage all of our candidates to read over the rules of electioneering that were communicated and take advantage of the opportunity to send out a communication to the campus community about why you'd be a good member of the Senate. Thank you very much.
It's on May 10th, you say?
May 10th on TopNet. We'll send out some more communications about it. And then you'll hopefully hear from candidates that are up for election.
And for the chair report, things have actually been relatively quiet. I don't have much new to report this week. I will reiterate Jordan's comments about the BEC processes that will be extremely important in the fall, assuming that 2% pool is approved. It was very nice that we had Susan, Varia, and Andrea come and speak with us at our last meeting and give us feedback on the compensation study and the status of that. We had a similar presentation provided to us in various different scenarios and functions that we could pursue for allocating that 2% pool was provided to us in our last BEC meeting. And so we had the opportunity to hear from Andrea at BEC as well, and some different scenarios and the positives and negatives of those different methods of allocating that money. So it gave BEC kind of as one of our last meeting points, an opportunity to think over the summer so that we can ask questions, request data if it's necessary to help inform that decision. And again, those conversations will be picked up in the fall. So that is what I have to report out of BEC, and I think that I actually have anything else to report this week. So
When's the last time you met with the president? Have you met with him?
I did. I met with the president the last Monday in April. Those conversations, there was not a new issue that came up. I'm sure he appreciates it. He hears some of the same concerns from me as always, that wanting to make sure that how we allocate that salary is done in the best way possible. And he understands where we stand on that and our hopes that we could eventually. I've shared with him what Senate has expressed several different times, that we would love to get to a place where we have, in addition to, if you are performing well and doing your job well on your performance evaluations, that there's an expectation that we may be able to see a floor, that 2%, we very much appreciated that. And we would also like to see if there's any room for that, an additional pool set aside to help address other compensation issues if it's possible. So things like rewarding performance on merit. You know, we hear a lot about longevity. I think that ends up always taking the place of longevity in our conversations. It's if you have been here a long time and you're performing well, you are very likely going to be considered maybe for a performance based pool if one was to ever be created. So those conversations, I always will continue to have those with him every time that I do meet with him. So yeah. Any other questions for me? All right, next we'll move on to old business, which there is none on our agenda unless anyone is aware of old business that should be brought before the Senate that didn't make it on our agenda. And we'll move on to new business. There was none on our agenda. Is there any new business that was not presented on our agenda that anyone wants to bring before the Senate? Hearing none, we'll move to the public comment period. So this period is open to anybody, whether senator or non-senator, to make public comments for the good of WKU staff. Any public comments? Then we'll move on to announcements and events. The only things there at the bottom of our agenda, we will have our staff Senate Executive Committee meeting next week on Tuesday, May 9th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. And then our next meeting will be June 7th for the full staff Senate meeting. So again, as a reminder, May 10th is that election date. Please vote in that election. After that, we will know the makeup of our Senate body going into the next year. And so those terms will begin July 1. So after our June meeting, those newly elected senators will be meeting for the first time together to elect new officers and get to know each other and get set and ready to begin their term in July. So that's it for me on announcements and notable events.